Hey, this is Greg, and in this video I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about adding borders to your photos and frames in Canva. So what's possible in Canva? What's not possible in Canva? And for what's not possible, what are the workarounds so you can end up with results like this and this and this, and you can even end up with editable borders where you can change the color or even use a video border. Covering all that and more today, so let's jump in. Okay, so here we are in Canva, and let's start with the basics, because anytime you're learning something new, it's best to start with the fundamentals, understand the basics of what Canva can do, and then when we run into sort of hurdles and things we need to get around, that's when we'll reach into our bag of tricks. But let's review first sort of the basics here. So in here I have a shape, I have some text, I have a photo with the background removed, and then I have a frame element here. So these are all different elements we may work with in Canva. And so how do we add a border, outline, stroke, whatever you want to call it? How do we put an outline around these elements? Okay, so let's start with the shape here. So anytime you have a shape in Canva, you do have this option up here. So you can come in here and you can add a border this way. So you can add a border. Now, what I don't like about this is the border sort of goes from the outward in. So to me, that's a little counterintuitive because I sort of think of my element here taking up all this space. And so I kind of expect a border to work outward. So you have to be aware of this if you start to use this feature in Canva, that when you use this border option here, it's going to build that border sort of from the outer edge of your shape, and it's going to build it inward so you could actually fill your whole shape most of the way with that border if you wanted to. So the options you have here are border weight. You can also add corner rounding. So if you start to drag this, then you're actually changing the shape of your shape itself. And then of course you have some border options for dash borders. Okay, so we have that option. So that is cool. Now we also have that option if you click on a photo. So I can click on the photo itself. And again, exact same menu here where I have this border weight. I can start to add a border. I can start to add that corner rounding if I want to. Again, dash line if I want to have it like that. We can come in here. I didn't mention before, you can click on this, you can change the color, change it to white so we can't see it because we have a white background, but there we go, I changed it to green. So again, I like it, but again, to me, a little counterintuitive that it works from out to in rather than working outwards from the edge of the photo. But we do have those options, and if you have a frame, again, the frame works the exact same way. So both, so each of shapes, photos and frames, they all have this sort of border menu you can get to by clicking on it, and then you can come in here, you can start to fool around, you can adjust the color, you can adjust the weight, the rounding, and then the border style. So we have that option for all these things. Now text is going to work a little different, and I actually like the way text works a little bit better, because if we click on my name here, so if I click on my name, then I can go into the effects menu. So we're going slightly to a different location, but under text we have these different effects, and the outline effect is what you're going to want to use if you want to add an outline, a border, a stroke around your text. And again, now it is working from the edge of your text outwards. And again, this just makes more sense to me. This is the way I'm used to having sort of an outline working from the edge of my text outwards. So again, that makes sense. And again, you can come in here, you can change the color. So be aware of this effect here. Now you have other text effects here you can fool around with, but today in this tutorial, we're just talking about sort of these border effects here, where we can add an outline, add a stroke, add a border around our images. Now, what about this? Here we have a photo, and we know photo works a certain way, but now that I've extracted the photo, I really want a border just to follow the confines of what I've extracted here. However, if I come up to this menu, you probably are going to be a little disappointed when you see it's just working with those initial confines of the photo, even though the photo has been extracted, okay? So how do we get something more dynamic, like the images we saw in the intro to this video? How do we get something where we can take a little bit more control and apply some borders around photos, especially extracted photos, in a more dynamic manner? How do we do that? Okay, so let's dig in a little farther. Let's see what kind of tricks we can do in Canva. So I'm going to grab this photo here, Control C. We'll come to the next page, we'll paste it, Control V. Now I'm going to come under Styles. Let's just get rid of this border weight and corner rounding, so just so we have a basic photo. So anything where you do just have a basic shape in Canva, like a regular photo here, then we can take advantage of the fact that we have layers and we can stack layers behind other layers. So I could just hit R to bring up a rectangle. Let's say I wanted this to be a stroke behind it, so I could make it green. And then let's just sort of center it. So I'm going to drag it up here so it snaps to the center. And then I could grab the side points, drag it out so it's a little bigger, drag it out so it's a little bigger. And then I could go to my layers menu or use the keyboard shortcut control plus my left bracket key to push it behind. Again, I could have gone to position my layer menu here. And of course under here, you can just drag and reposition layers so you can move layers behind other layers. So we could have done that. Now, of course, now I could also duplicate this. So again, I could do Control D to duplicate. And now I have a new copy here. Let's take that copy and make sure it's exactly centered over the other layer there, something like that. Then I could come in here, let's change the color, and then let's go ahead and resize this even more. So I'm going to grab a corner point. I'm going to hold down my Alt key to drag out. Now we'll go back to that layers menu. We'll move that to the bottom. And then, of course, if I want to adjust just this side here, instead of Alt, I could hold down my Shift key, and then I'm actually not the Shift key. Control key. Let's see. So sometimes keyboard modifiers will do different things. So if I'm holding the Alt key down and I'm going from the side, now I'm just resizing those two sides, right? So this side and the opposite side. If I were to do it from a corner point, I'd be resizing all four sides. And then, of course, if I just drag it without the keyboard modifier, then I'm just moving the one side, okay? So different keyboard modifiers are going to do different things. But my whole point here with this is that you can come in here, and if you have a basic shape, you can add layers this way. Of course, that's not going to help us once we remove the photo. We're going to have to come up with a new method. So let's go in here now and let's use this background remover. So if you're pro Canva user, you have this background remover. So you can hit background remover. Let's get rid of these rectangles now because now they're not going to do what we want. Let's size this woman up here a little bit. Okay, and so now we have this image here. So now we're going to have to come up with a different method, right? Different problem, slightly different, right? Now we have to come up with a different method because we know we can't come in here and use this because we know that's not doing what we want. That's not going to work. Okay, so there is one method that can sometimes work. Now I know for a fact it's not going to work great on this photo, but let me bring up another photo and show you this method because it sometimes can work to your needs, and it also has another purpose where I think it actually can work a lot of the time. But let me just show you real quick and everything will be explained. So let me just add another one here. I'm actually going to go grab a different photo. Let's see what I grabbed recently. Let's grab this one here. So let's grab this photo here, and we're going to come in here and we will come in here and we'll use this edit photo. Once again, background remover. And now we can collapse this side menu down. So now we have this photo here. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this photo. So I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate. Now, you can turn any photo into a solid color in Canva by using the Duotone option here under Edit Photo. So you can come under Edit Photo, and you can come under Duotone, and what this does is you're adding one color to your highlights, another color to your shadow areas, but you can use the same color. So I can choose any of these here, and let me come in here, and let's say I want to have a yellow outline. So let's come in here, let's choose something yellow like that, and then for the second one, I'm going to choose the exact same color, use the color picker, select there, and so now in essence, I've turned that into a solid color. And now what I can do is I can come and I can size this up a little bit from the original photo, so something maybe like that. Then let's reposition it behind, and then let's come in here and let's sort of drag it and position it. And then of course we could come up and pull up from the bottom, group these together however we want to. Let's select them both now. Let's group them together if we want to. So select them both. Hit this group option here. So now we can move them around together. So in essence, we sort of did add an outline. Now it's not that perfect outline that you sometimes see, but it does sort of work. So you do have this option that works sometimes with photos. But if I try this with this photo, I know it's not going to work very well because it's much wider up here than it is in her neck area. And when you just scale something this way, it's not really adding the same length border at all spots because this area is going to scale up more than this area. So let's just run through this example and you'll see what I mean. So if I hit Control D to duplicate, again, real quick, come under Edit Photos, we'll real quick go under Duotone. We'll choose this one here. We'll take this bottom color, make it the same as the top color. We'll make this bigger. We'll take the position here. We'll push it behind, and then I can move it, but you can see that, okay, it's sort of going to work on her hair and her shoulders, but it's not going to really be a consistent outline. So this Duotone option In certain situations, you may find it usable. A lot of the times you may not. But what I do like to do with this duotone filter, just as a sort of an aside in this video, an extra little tip for you, is that once you do this, I like to combine this duotone filter. So let me ungroup these. I like to combine it with the blur filter. So if you go under the edit photo now, we go under blur, whole image, and we blur this, then suddenly, hey, this duotone filter and combined with the blur filter, that's a good way if you just want to add sort of this highlight behind your subject like this, and then you can come in here and you can take the transparency, you can make it, you know, more subtle if you want, or more dramatic, and you're not going to have quite the same issues you had before where you're trying to get that precise border, because you're not going to notice it as much. So I like to do that. But getting back to here, trying to have a precise border, we can see that this just is not going to work. Canva does not really have the tools we need. So rather than going crazy in here and losing time, we're going to jump over into Photopea, a free online editor, which is like a lightweight version of Photoshop that's going to let us do what we need to do. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this as a transparent PNG. So I will come under my layers menu here. Let's just turn this layer off. We can actually just get rid of it altogether. So I'll delete that layer. Now we have this layer here. It's on the second page here. So I'm just going to go share. I'm going to go download. I'm going to make sure that I choose PNG under this. I'm going to make sure I choose transparent background. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm just downloading the second page. So I'm going to go ahead and download that now. And then we'll go ahead and jump over into Photopea. Okay, so here we are at photopea.com. Again, this is an online editor with a free version that lets you do a lot of cool things that you cannot do with Canva. So it is a nice tool to pair with Canva. And so I'm going to go ahead now and open from my computer, and I will open that example that we were just working on. And so what I'll say is, like, whether you're a Canva user or some other software, invariably when you start to run into a stumbling block where you're trying to do something beyond the capabilities of that software, you just have to understand that no piece of software is going to be able to do everything. So you do need to figure out how to fill in those gaps with other tools if you have an objective or a goal that's beyond the means of that software. So that's where Photopea really pairs well with Canva. It's going to be able to fill in the gaps for some of those tasks that Canva's not great at. Of course, you know, as I record this just a few days ago, Canva did acquire Affinity, and so I recorded a video about that. I'll post a link above if you want to check it out. But so it might be interesting to see how Canva develops going forward, and maybe some of these things you won't have to step out of Canva, but for now, this is how we're going to have to handle it. So in Photopea, like you have in Photoshop, you have layer styles that you can apply. So I could come down here to this effects menu where you see this layer style pop up. And I could do that, and I could just come in here and choose stroke. It's going to bring up the layer style menu. And then we have a stroke here, and so you can change the color. So we have one green stroke here, and at 75 pixels is what we're applying. And then also we have it positioned outside. And I mentioned that's not what I liked when it was doing it inside of Canva. If you remember when we did a border on a shape in Canva, it would put it on the inside, sort of like this, which is not what I want. You can also choose center, but outside is going to be what I want. So I choose outside, and then you can continue to stack these on top of each other. So if I want another stroke, I could do another stroke here. This stroke is appearing above the prior one. So if we do 75 again, it's just going to obscure the green one. So let's change this one to red, and then we don't want to obscure the other one. So let's come in here. Let's adjust the size down to 50. Again, I could do this again. So let's do another one here. And this top one, let's change it to something like a yellow, and this time we'll change it down to, actually lost my color, there's my color. Click OK, change it down to 25, hit OK, and then we'll hit OK in here. Now I think I did lose one of my colors here, so let's see, I have yellow, I have green. Yes, I lost this color here, so let's come in under this color. Again, let's choose red, and I got to make sure I hit OK to commit that color. And so yeah, I think it worked, but I think what I didn't have was the size committed. So 50, okay, okay. So now we have it. So in other words, you can apply layer effects like this. But if we take something like this back now into Canva, so I could export this as a transparent PNG again, take it back into Canva. So in other words, I could turn this off. I could come to the menu here. I could do File, Export As, and then PNG, use this option here. And I could take it back into Canva, and I could have that. And that would be great if this is the look I wanted and I was only going to use it on one project. But if I was doing this with a frame, or if I was just wanted to have the flexibility of being able to change my colors later, then instead of doing it this way, what I'd want to do is create frames, okay? So if you watched this channel before, you know I have a video on how to create a custom frame in Photopea, and you can do it very quickly. It's a simple process, way easier than most people think, so I will post that link above for anybody that has not seen that video. But I'm also going to walk you through the process right now so we can create some shapes that are frames that we can take back into Canva that are effectively going to become the borders around our image. And the advantage of doing it this way is going to be that now we're going to have editable colors, because you can put any solid color inside of a frame. But not only that, we can also add in pictures if we want to add pictures, or maybe we want even to put a video in there so we have some motion in our frame, in our border around our image. Okay, so there are going to be advantages to doing it this way. So if you watched that video before on how to make a frame in Photopea like this, you have to start by making a selection. We're going to turn that selection into a vector mask, and then when we export a PDF that has a vector mask, then that's going to become a frame in Canva. But so let's walk through the process. So you can control click on any layer in Photopea here to make a selection. So I can control click here and it's making a selection around the woman here, but we can see it's ignoring these effects, right? So this method of adding effects like this isn't really helping me with selections. Again, I would only use this effect menu to add a border like this if you just wanted to do it one time and take back an image, and then you wouldn't have control over editing the way you're going to have that with the method we're going to use now. So these effects here, I can actually right click on this, and I can come under layer style. We can actually just clear that and get rid of that. We're not going to need that. But so how am I going to make the selections to represent the areas that are going to be the borders around this? Because obviously I want these selections to now expand out from the edge of the woman here, and to do so equidistantly so we get the same size border all the way around here. Okay, so we will start by making a selection of the subject. So that's going to be control click. So then hold down control, left mouse button, click on this layer where we want to make the selection. And that's a control key on Windows, but if you're on Mac, that would be the command key. So now that we have this selection here, what you can do is come up to the select menu here. We can come down, we can choose this modify, and then we can choose expand. And now we can come in here and tell it how many pixels we want to expand by. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to type in 25, we're going to click OK. And so now we see if it's built out this selection around here. So once we have a selection, if you remember from before, what we're going to do is you're going to jump over to the paths menu, go to the bottom and choose this option 4 over, selection to path. We're going to turn that into a path. Then I'll come back here to my layers. I'm going to add a new layer just so we can have a layer there. I'll use control backspace to fill that layer with black. And then I'm just going to come up here under the layer menu, and I'm going to go layer, vector mask, and current path. And when we do that, now suddenly we're going to see, if you zoom in here, you can see that is sort of a gray mask. And the color effect that is gray here lets us know we've created a vector mask. And that's crucial because this vector mask, when we export this as a PDF to Photoshop, anything that's a vector mask is going to come in to Canva as a frame. Okay, so that's going to allow us to create our own custom Canva frame. Now, let's imagine we do want a couple more borders, right? So this one would be 25 pixels beyond our subject, but maybe we want one that's going to be even more. So I could do this as many times as I want. So let's create another one. So let's just right now, I'll just control click on the mask itself to make a selection of that mask. And then once again, I'll just come up here and go layer. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to modify this, not layer, or come up under select, same thing as before, choose modify, expand. Once again, 25, we'll do OK. Once again, we'll jump over here. Once again, we'll do this selection to path. Then we'll come back to layers. We'll do another layer here. And then once again, control backspace to fill with black. And again, that's because currently my black is my background color, but I think if you hit D on the keyboards, I think I have that flipped. So by default, usually black is going to be your foreground color. So if you wanted to fill with black, you would use Alt backspace. Of course, it doesn't really matter what color we're using here. It's just going to clip whatever we have on this layer, and that's what's going to initially appear in that frame. But of course, the magic thing is that then it's going to be editable. You can put in a different picture. You can put in a different solid color. Okay, so once again, once we have that, we'll come up here, we'll go layer. We'll go vector mask, we'll go current path, and we have the next one. Now, of course, you can create as many vector masks like this as you want. It all comes down to, what you're trying to accomplish. So I think in that example I showed at the beginning of this video, maybe I had 3 25 pixel borders and then maybe another larger border that went out another 100 pixels. So let's do this 2 more times. So I will control click on this again. Once again, we're going to come up here, select, modify, expand. Once again, we'll do 25 pixels. Once again, we'll jump over the paths. We'll go selection to path. We'll come back to our layers real quick. We'll add a new layer. Alt backspace again to fill with black. And then once again, I will come under layer, vector mask, current path. And then we're going to do this one final time where I control click. This time we're going to go under select and we're going to modify and expand, but this time we will make it even bigger. So let's expand 100 pixels this time since we want this border to be larger. Then we'll go under paths one more time, selection to path. So you can see once you've figured this out once, it's just this repetitive set of steps that you have to remember, and you can start to do it very quickly. So again, back to layers here. Again, one more time, new layer, fill in with black just so we have a visual reference. Once again, we'll go under layer, vector mask, and current path. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to take all these back into Canva. These all are going to be sort of these vector mask layers that we can then have as a frame in Canva, and we'll be able to use them as our borders by filling with solid colors, or we could even fill them with pictures or videos, whatever you want your border to be. Now, when we take that back into Canva, we'll have these borders which we could then sort of paste into the file where we had this cutout, but of course you might just want to include this cutout on top of this layer stack, so I'll just put it in here. Just because your layer order in here is going to affect how things get brought into Canva. So when you're creating your layers, you might want to think about this. So in other words here, this layer here is actually the largest border. So I actually want that to be the backmost layer. So I might drag that to the back. This one is going to be the next back. And so just thinking about the order as you create this, is also important. You can reorder once you get in Canva. You can bring things from other documents, but you might want to just stay as organized as you can. So I'm going to put them in that order. I'm going to make sure this is turned on, and then we're going to come up here and go File, Export As, because exporting this as a PDF is going to be the key thing. When you export as PDF, anything that's stored in here as a vector mask is then going to become a frame in Canva. Just make sure when you do export that you leave all these checked off, because that could mess up the process. You want to make sure those are checked off. Then we'll go ahead and save. We'll save this off. I'm just going to overwrite this woman border example. Yes. So just make note of where you save it because that's where you're going to upload it from back into Canva. So let's jump back into Canva now. So here we are back into Canva. You could use this upload button to upload what we just created, but I also have recent downloads where I can see that in my Chrome browser. I have a little icon up here. I can click, I can see recent downloads, and then I can just grab what I just created and drag it right on screen. And if you drag something right on your home screen like that, it's going to get uploaded automatically. You can see the progress bar here as it uploads. And then once it's uploaded, we can click on that and we can see it flash. And so yes, we have the image in front here, but then if we look at our layers menu, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, now we can go into these individually and start changing the color so they'll become those border elements. So I could click on this one here. Let's go ahead and give this a color. So we'll just give it like a yellow color like this. Let's go back to that position menu. Let's go to the next one. Again, we'll grab this color icon. We'll use the color that we just added, but let's come in here and we'll just adjust it slightly. So let's just move it towards orange a little bit. And then we'll come back to the position again. Let's go to the next one here again. Choose the color swatch. Again, we'll choose that one we just did, but then again, we'll come here and we'll move it just slightly along this line here. Again, one more time, let's go to the position here. Let's grab the last one here, which is what? This one here. So let's grab this one here, and once again, color swatch. Once again, we'll choose the most recent color, but then we'll move it slightly more along this line here. And so just like that, suddenly we have this cool border effect where we're adding something to our borders here, where we can add solid colors, but it's also something we can change. And it's also something where we can come in under the Elements tab. Let me just type in something like abstract something like that. Just type in abstract and just go under photos and see all the different abstract things in here. And we could say, oh, maybe that would be an interesting border here. So come in here and drop that into the top border. So again, the way we've stacked this is if we have something totally obscure, then it's hard to drop something into a frame, but you can just barely get to the frames like this. So we can drag things into the frame. And of course, if you couldn't get to a frame because it was hidden behind other frames, you could temporarily drag it up to the top of your stack, add something, and then put it back down. But the way it stands now, we can just barely access things here, and so we can just drag and drop, and it's even easier. And any of these steps that make it even easier, you want to think about that as you're setting things up, because these little steps that'll save you time, if it's something you might reuse again and again, then those are important steps. And of course, I mentioned before, you know, you can add a picture like that, but we could also come in here and we could add something that had some motion to it. So if I come back under this, I'll type abstract once again, just because sometimes you get some cool things. So I'll type abstract shapes. Of course, let's try to spell it correctly, abstract shapes. This time, let's look under videos to see all. And then suddenly, if I wanted to try some of these different video options, then I could again just drag that directly into my frame, watch it play, and then suddenly we're getting this cool animated border, okay? So you get the idea. Now, of course, I've done this with an image, but you could do the exact same thing with a frame. And a frame might be an even more realistic use case example where you might be creating an asset where you reuse again and again. Because for a single image like this, maybe you're not always going to reuse it again and again. But if we're looking at something like a frame, so let me come over here. Here's a frame. Now, for this frame, I didn't actually do the border effect like we did before. I actually just copied and resized it. So again, think about what you're trying to do. But if I did want to create that exact border like we did, I could follow the steps exactly that we did for the photo in this example. It would work exactly the same way. But regardless, then you can do something like you can come in here, and if we just play this here a little bit, I believe that for this example here, let me hit this duration. Let's just go and find right here on our timeline. If I go on our timeline and then we hit play, so let me hit spacebar to play, then we can see that I actually have an effect here where I have sort of this video that sort of drips down from the outer frame into the inner frame here. And so I think I did that by just dragging a video into this frame that is the backmost frame. And then above it in this frame, I dragged in the same video, and since they're aligned, it aligns perfectly. But then when I dragged it into this one above here, this frame above, I just lowered down the opacity so it doesn't obscure. Because in other words, if I come here and I raise up this opacity, so let me just take the transparency way up, then you can see actually there's a video in that frame above, and then in this frame behind it, there's the image of the woman. So this sort of frame stacking is just a way you can have lots of fun. And again, the borders we learned how to do in this video, another way to have lots of fun. And you can really get creative, and especially with something like frames here, you can build these reusable assets that have all these cool editable features that make them dynamic, that make them so they're not going to be the same every time. And it becomes something you can reuse again and again without redoing the work every time. And that's really the crucial point I want you to take away from this, is think about those assets you're going to reuse, think about your workflow, and design something once that you're going to be able to reuse again and again, so that when you use it in the future, you're saving time. You're not having to redo all those little steps, okay? So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, feel free to subscribe. I do lots of Canva tutorials on this channel, and the best way to stay up on Canva is to sign up for my free newsletter. So if you want to sign up for that, I'm going to sort of pin a comment below and also try to put a link in the details of this video below. So check those out. If you want to stay up to date with my free Canva newsletter, feel free to do that. But again, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and I